They say a man who waits too long for love will die waiting. But what if patience isn't weakness? What if it's destiny sharpening its blade? Nigeria, 1985. While his classmates scrambled for white-collar jobs wearing borrowed ties and rehearsed smiles, Zik made a different choice. Chocolate-skinned, well-built, with eyes that calculated before they spoke, he turned his back on the corporate race and walked into a trader's warehouse instead. "You're wasting your certificate," they said. But Zik wasn't listening. He was learning. Learning how importers moved goods across borders like chess pieces. Learning how patience multiplied profit. Learning that true wealth whispered, it never shouted. 10 years. 10 years of trading, building, refusing marriage proposals from eager families who saw a handsome man going to waste. But Zik had dreams bigger than a wife's cooking pot and children's school fees. He had visions that stretched beyond Lagos traffic and power cuts, all the way across the Atlantic Ocean. Then came the letter. Mr. Ikit, his maternal uncle, the one who'd left Nigeria when Zik was still in secondary school, had sent word from Florida. Not just word. An invitation. Papers. A pathway. America. On June 12, 1995, 30-year-old Zik boarded a plane with one suitcase, 10 years of trading experience, and zero guarantees. Florida swallowed him whole, right, fast, unforgiving. His uncle's prosperity was real: big house, smooth cars, children who spoke English with accents that erased their ancestors. But Zik refused to be a burden. He refused to be the African relative living off American generosity like borrowed time. So he searched. And searched. And searched. 1 year of rejection. 1 year of "we'll call you back," and doors closing before he could finish his name. Then Kyle, Mr. Ikit's friend, a white man with kind eyes and a firm handshake, made a phone call. "Delivery company needs reliable people." "You reliable, Zik?" "More than reliable," Zik answered. "I'm necessary." 6 months later, Zik held keys to his own apartment. Small, yes. Modest. He was living his own way now, the Nigerian way, the patient way, the way that built foundations before raising roofs. Then the company decided youth was cheaper than experience. Layoffs came like a thief. Older workers, men who'd given years, escorted out with cardboard boxes and hollow handshakes. But not Zik. His work ethic had built a shield his colleagues' complaints could not. He survived. 2 weeks later, new faces filled the warehouse. Young, eager, replaceable. The manager tapped Zik's shoulder. "Orientation tomorrow. You're speaking. Show these kids what real work looks like." Zik stood before them, strangers with hungry eyes and fresh uniforms, and spoke with the authority of a man who'd earned every word. Clear. Confident. Commanding. He didn't see her watching. Didn't see how her eyes traced his gestures, how his voice carved itself into her memory. A 28-year-old Nigerian woman, new to the company, new to loving someone before speaking to them. But Zik, reserved, disciplined Zik, had no idea he'd just won a heart without even trying. After the orientation, Zik walked toward the exit. That's when he saw her. Standing alone, waiting for a ride, sunlight catching her face like a spotlight on stage. His chest tightened. His carefully built walls trembled. "Don't stare. You're not that man. You're focused. Reserved." "Good afternoon," she said, smiling. "Afternoon," he managed, his voice steadier than his heartbeat. They talked, small words, safe words, the kind that mean nothing and everything. Then her ride came, and she was gone. But something had shifted. Zik felt it in his bones, in the suddenly too quiet walk to his car, in the way her smile stayed behind his eyelids when he blinked. He didn't know it yet, but his 10 years of patience, his 2 years of American struggle, his entire carefully constructed life, was about to be rebuilt by a woman he'd just met. So here's the question, my friends, can a man who spent his whole life building walls, learn to open a door? Listen carefully, because this is where patience becomes torture, and silence becomes a prison. This is where a man discovers that the greatest battle isn't winning a woman's heart, it's admitting you want to. The next morning, Zeke arrived at work the way he always did, early, focused, prepared. But something was different. Someone was different. She was standing by her car, looking at her watch, looking at the entrance, looking for him. "Good morning, Zeke," she called out, her voice carrying across the parking lot like a song he didn't know he'd been waiting to hear. His name in her mouth sounded foreign. Intimate. Dangerous. "Morning," he replied, matching her stride toward the building. And just like that, without discussion, without decision, a rhythm was born. They walked in together. Clocked in side by side. When lunch came, she appeared at his usual solitary table with a smile that asked permission without speaking. "This seat taken?" "It's been empty for 2 years," his heart wanted to say. "It's been waiting for you." But Zeke was still Zeke, reserved, controlled, careful. "It's free," is what came out instead. Days became weeks. Weeks became routine. Morning greetings. Lunch conversations. Shared laughter over small things, warehouse gossip, American confusion, memories of Lagos rain and jollof rice arguments. And every evening, they'd stand at that same entrance where they'd first spoken, waiting for the same cab, heading home in the same direction. She talked freely. He listened carefully. She laughed easily. He smiled rarely, but when he did, she noticed. Oh, she noticed everything. The way his jaw tightened when he concentrated. The way his eyes softened when she mentioned home. The way he always made sure she got into the cab first. "You're quite the gentleman," she said one evening. "I'm quite Nigerian," he corrected. There's a difference. But there wasn't just friendship brewing in those shared moments. There was something heavier, thicker, unspoken. Something that made the silence between sentences feel loud. "Can you feel it yet?" the narrator asks. That pressure building. That invisible wall cracking. Keep watching, never back off till the end, because Zillow felt it too. And it terrified him. Mr. Ikit noticed first. Of course he did. Uncles always do. "This your friend," he said one Sunday after church, watching them arrive together in a cab. "She's very nice. Very respectful." "Yes, uncle. Just a colleague. Just a colleague who comes to family dinner 3 Sundays in a row." Zeke said nothing. What could he say? That he invited her because her laughter filled spaces in his life he didn't know were empty. That Mr. Ikit's wife reminded her of her own mother back in Lagos, and watching her smile at the dinner table made Zeke imagine futures he had no right imagining yet. Mrs. Ikit was less subtle. "Zeke, this girl, what's her full name again?" We call her Neka at work." "Neka," Mrs. Ikit repeated, testing the name like a key in a lock. "Is she Igbo?" "Yes, Ma." "And she's single?" I believe so." "You believe so?" Mrs. Ikit laughed, that knowing African mother laugh that strips away all pretense. "Zeke, my son, a man doesn't spend every waking hour with a woman he knows nothing about. So let me ask you properly, is your heart still sleeping, or has it finally woken up?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Zeke felt his carefully constructed walls shudder. "She's just a friend, auntie." But Mrs. Ikit smiled the way women smile when they know men are lying, especially to themselves. That night, lying on a small apartment bed, Zeke stared at the ceiling and asked himself the question he'd been avoiding for weeks. Am I falling in love? And worse, far worse. What do I do if I am? 3 months. 3 months of daily companionship, and Zeke still hadn't said the words circling his heart like vultures. He told himself it was wisdom. Caution. The same patience that had built his trading business, survived his first American year, and his apartment. But patience and cowardice often wear the same face. One Friday afternoon, during their lunch break, Neka did something unexpected. She stopped eating mid-sentence, put down her fork, and looked at him, really looked at him, with eyes that demanded honesty. "Zeke, can I ask you something?" His throat went dry. Of course. In all the time we've known each other, have you ever thought about marriage? The warehouse seemed to tilt. Marriage. Not us, she added quickly, too quickly. I mean, in general. You're what, 32? 33. Don't you want a family someday? Asterisk with you, his heart screamed. Asterisk only with you. Someday, his mouth said instead. When the time is right. She nodded slowly, something flickering across her face, disappointment. Hurt. Hope. The time, she repeated softly. Yes. The time must always be right. The conversation moved on, but the question remained, hanging between them like a curtain neither could see through. Do you see what's happening here? The narrator interjects. Do you see the tragedy unfolding? Two hearts beating the same rhythm, both too afraid to dance. But fear has a price, my friends. And Zeke was about to pay it. The first crack came from a coworker named Marcus, young, loud, confident in ways Zeke had never been. Yo, Neka, Marcus called out one morning, leaning against her workstation with practiced ease. You doing anything this weekend? There's this new African restaurant downtown. Thought you might want to check it out. You know, with me. Zeke's hands tightened around the package he was holding. From across the warehouse, he watched her smile, polite, careful. That's kind, Marcus, but I usually spend weekends with friends. Friends? Marcus grinned. You mean Zeke? Come on, that's not the same. Man barely talks. She straightened, her voice cooling. Zeke talks plenty. You just have to be worth listening to. Marcus laughed it off and walked away, but the damage was done. Not to Marcus, to Zeke. Because in that moment, Zeke realized something terrifying, he had no claim on her. No right to the jealousy burning through his chest. They were friends. Just friends. That's all he'd ever said, all he'd ever offered. And Marcus was right, he barely talked. Not about feelings. Not about futures. Not about the dreams that now wore her face, nothing at all. The second crack came 2 weeks later. I might take a trip home, Neko mentioned casually during their cab ride. My mother's been asking. Maybe stay for a month or two. I have vacation days saved up. Nigeria. Zeke's voice sounded strange to his own ears. Where else? She laughed, but it didn't reach her eyes. Nothing's keeping me here permanently. No family. No obligations. Obligations. The word was a challenge. A test. An open door he was too afraid to walk through. You should go, he heard himself say. Family is important. She turned to look at him then, really look at him, and for the first time since they'd met, he saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before. Disappointment. Clear. Final. Resigned. Yes, she said quietly. Family is important. It's everything, really. When you don't have other reasons to stay. The cab pulled up to her apartment. She got out, said goodnight, and closed the door. And Zeke sat in that cab, frozen, as it drove away toward his own empty apartment, carrying the weight of every word he'd failed to say. Now tell me, wise ones watching, have you ever held something so tightly, you strangled it? Have you ever loved something so carefully, you lost it? Because Zeke was about to learn that patience without courage isn't wisdom. It's just fear wearing a respectable mask. Monday morning, Neka didn't wait for him in the parking lot. Tuesday, she ate lunch alone. Wednesday, she took a different cab home. By Thursday, Zeke felt like he was drowning in air. The warehouse, once comfortable, familiar, became a torture chamber. Every corner reminded him of her laughter. Every lunch break screamed with her absence. Mr. Ikit noticed. Your friend hasn't come for Sunday dinner. She's busy. Busy, or you're foolish. Zeke looked up sharply. Uncle. Mr. Ikit set down his newspaper, his face serious. Zeke, I brought you to this country to build a life, not a prison. That girl, Neka, she looks at you the way your late aunt looked at me 30 years ago. Like you're the answer to prayers she didn't know she was praying. And you? You look at her like she's the sun, but you're too afraid to step out of the shade. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. Mr. Ikit's voice rose. You think opportunity announces itself with trumpets. You think love waits forever. That girl has been waiting. Patient. Respectful. But patience runs out, my son. Even for the most virtuous heart. That night, Zeke couldn't sleep. He paced his apartment, 6 steps to the window, 6 steps back, trapped in the cage of his own making. What if she left for Nigeria and never came back? What if Marcus asked again, and this time she said yes? What if? The questions multiplied like locusts, consuming every rational thought until only one truth remained. He was losing her. Not to distance. Not to circumstance. But to his own silence. And for the first time in his disciplined, patient, carefully controlled life, Zeke was ready to be reckless. So here we stand, at the edge of the cliff. Zeke, the man who built his entire life on patience, must now decide, will he leap into love's uncertainty? Or will he watch the woman who saw him, truly saw him, walk away forever? Because tomorrow, Neka submits her vacation request. Tomorrow, she books her flight to Lagos. Tomorrow, she begins saying goodbye. But tonight, Zeke must find his voice. The question is, after years of silence, does he even remember how? The ancestors say, a word unsaid is a child unborn, it dies in the womb of silence. But can a man who's lived his entire life behind walls finally tear them down? Can discipline transform into vulnerability? Can patience become courage? Watch closely now, because what happens next will determine whether Zeke's story becomes a love remembered, or a regret that haunts. Friday morning came wearing the face of Judgment Day. Zeke woke before his alarm, heart hammering against his ribs like it was trying to escape. In his mirror, he saw a stranger, a man whose careful control had crumbled, whose patience had become paralysis, whose silence had nearly cost him everything. No more, he whispered to his reflection. Today, I speak. But speaking and knowing what to say are different countries entirely. At work, he watched her from across the warehouse. She moved through her tasks with professional efficiency, but something was different. The lightness was gone. The smile that used to find him across crowded rooms had disappeared. She was already leaving. Not physically, not yet. But emotionally, she'd begun packing. During lunch, she sat alone again. Zeke gripped his sandwich so hard it fell apart in his hands. Marcus walked past her table, said something that made her laugh politely, and Zeke felt his resolve harden into steel. Enough. He stood. His legs felt like water, but he walked, one step, then another, until he was standing at her table, casting a shadow across her food. She looked up, surprise flickering across her face. Zeke. Can we talk? His voice sounded steady. Good. That was good. After work. Please. Something shifted in her eyes, hope. Caution. Both. Okay, she said softly. After work. Did you catch that? The narrator asks. That single word, okay, carried the weight of months. But agreeing to talk and hearing what you need to hear. Those are not the same thing. The hardest part was still coming. 5 o'clock arrived like a verdict. Zeke stood at the entrance, the same entrance where they'd first spoken months ago, where destiny had whispered its intentions. She approached slowly, her bag on her shoulder, her expression guarded. For a moment, they just stood there. The Florida heat pressed down on them. Cars passed. Workers called out goodbyes. The world moved around them while they remained frozen in the space between past and future. You wanted to talk, she said finally. Zeke opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. All the speeches he'd rehearsed in his head, gone. All the careful words he'd arranged like soldiers, scattered. What remained was just truth, raw and unpolished and terrifying. "I'm afraid," he said. She blinked. "What?" "I'm afraid," he repeated, and suddenly the words were flowing like a dam had broken. "I've been afraid since the moment I saw you standing here. Afraid that if I speak, I'll say the wrong thing. Afraid that if I reach for you, you'll pull away. Afraid that a man like me, patient, careful, maybe too careful, doesn't know how to love someone like you, someone who lights up every room she walks into." Her eyes widened, but she said nothing. So he continued. "For 10 years in Nigeria, I built a business on patience. For 2 years here, I built a life on discipline. But you," his voice cracked slightly, "you walked into that orientation and knocked down everything I thought I knew about myself. And I've been too much of a coward to tell you. Zeke, please, let me finish. Because if I stop now, I might never find this courage again." He took a breath. "Nneka, you are the reason I wake up early. You are the reason lunch doesn't feel like a chore. You are the reason Florida finally feels like it could be home. And when Marcus asked you out, when you mentioned going to Nigeria, when you stopped waiting for me in the parking lot, I felt like I was losing something I never had the courage to claim." Tears were sliding down her cheeks now, but she was smiling. Actually smiling. "You foolish, foolish man," she whispered. His heart stopped. "I'm sorry." "Do you know when I fell in love with you?" she interrupted, stepping closer. "During the orientation. You stood in front of all those new employees, speaking with such confidence, such dignity, such strength, and I thought, this is the kind of man my mother prayed I'd find. Not loud. Not flashy. Just solid. Real. Good." Zeke felt the earth tilt beneath his feet. "But then you never said anything," she continued, her voice breaking slightly. "Days became weeks, weeks became months, and you never said anything. I thought maybe I was imagining it, the way you looked at me, the way you made sure I got home safely, the way your uncle's family welcomed me like I already belonged. I thought maybe Nigerian men in America were just different. More reserved. But it was killing me, Zeke. Waiting. Hoping. Wondering if I was just a friend, or if maybe, just maybe." "You're not just a friend," Zeke said firmly. "You've never been just a friend. Then what am I?" And here it was. The moment. The cliff's edge. What could Zeke do? Zeke reached out and took her hands, the first time he'd ever touched her intentionally, purposefully. Her fingers were smaller than his, softer, but they held on with a strength that steadied him. "You're the love of my life," he said simply. "You're the answer to dreams I didn't know how to dream. You're home, Nneka. You're home." She laughed through her tears, a sound like bells, like rain, like every good thing Zeke had been too afraid to hope for. "You really are foolish," she said again, but this time she was leaning into him, and he was wrapping his arms around her, and right there at that entrance, the same entrance where it all began, Zeke finally came home. That Sunday, Nneka returned to the Ikit home. But this time, she didn't arrive as Zeke's friend. She arrived holding his hand. Mrs. Ikit took one look at them and started praising God in Igbo. Mr. Ikit laughed, the deep, satisfied laugh of a man who'd seen the ending coming long before the characters did. Finally, Mr. Ikit declared, "I was beginning to think I'd have to knock sense into your head with a Bible. Uncle, please. No, let me talk. This boy," he pointed at Zeke, "this boy tortured himself for months. Months. Looking like a man walking to his own funeral every day. And this beautiful girl," he gestured to Nneka, "patient like Job himself. I told your aunt," I said, "these young people will give me high blood pressure with all this waiting." Everyone laughed. Nneka squeezed Zeke's hand under the table. Over jollof rice and fried plantains, over stories and jokes and plans for the future, something settled into place. Not just for Zeke and Nneka, but for everyone in that room. It was the feeling of rightness, of puzzle pieces that had finally found their feet. So, Mrs. Ikit said, her eyes twinkling with mischief, when should we start planning the introduction ceremony? Nneka nearly choked on her rice. Zik felt his ears go hot. Auntie, we only just what? Mrs. Ikit waved her hand dismissively. You think we don't know? You think we didn't see this coming? Please. You may take your time with the talking, but we Nigerians don't waste time with the marrying. Not when it's right. And looking at Nneka, at the woman who'd waited patiently for him to find his voice, who'd seen past his silence to the heart underneath, Zik realized his aunt was absolutely right. This was right. This was destined. This was worth every year of waiting. 6 months later, on a Saturday morning bright with possibility, Zik and Nneka stood before both families, hers flown in from Nigeria, his gathered in Florida, and made promises that patience had prepared them to keep. The traditional marriage ceremony was loud, colorful, exactly as it should be. Nneka wore coral beads that caught the light. Zik wore a border that his late father would have been proud of. And when they danced, when she smiled up at him with all the love he'd been too afraid to hope for, Zik understood something profound. Patience had taught him discipline. America had taught him resilience. But Nneka had taught him the most important lesson of all. That vulnerability isn't weakness. That speaking your heart isn't foolishness. That love, real love, requires the courage to risk everything you've carefully built for something you can't control. Mr. Ikit approached during the reception, placed a hand on Zik's shoulder, eyes glistening. Your father would be proud, he said quietly. You came to this country with nothing but dreams. Now look at you, good job, beautiful wife, bright future. You've built something real, Zik. Something that will last. Zik looked across the room at Nneka, laughing with his new mother-in-law, fitting seamlessly into the family fabric as if she'd always been there. I didn't build this alone, Uncle, Zik replied. She found me when I didn't even know I was lost. And so, dear ones, Zik's story teaches us what our ancestors have always known. Patience is a virtue, yes, but patience without courage is just fear in disguise. Discipline builds foundations, yes, but discipline without vulnerability builds prisons. You can wait for the perfect moment, the perfect words, the perfect circumstances. But perfection is a myth that keeps us silent while life passes by. Zik spent 10 years building in Nigeria, 2 years struggling in America, and nearly lost everything in the months he spent silent. But when he finally spoke, when he finally took the leap, he discovered that love had been waiting all along. Not for perfection. Just for honesty. The woman who won his heart didn't need grand gestures. She just needed his truth. And that, my friends, is worth more than all the patience in the world. Asterisk. Now it's your turn. Have you been waiting too long to speak your heart? Have you been patient to the point of paralysis? Have you let fear dress itself up as wisdom? Drop a comment below and tell me, what truth have you been too afraid to speak? What leap have you been too cautious to take? Share your story, because someone watching needs to hear it. Someone needs to know they're not alone in their fear. And if this story touched you, if Zik's journey reminded you that courage is always worth it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who needs to hear it. Because love stories don't just entertain us. They teach us. They push us. They remind us that life is too short to die with words unsaid. Until next time, speak your truth. Take your leap. Find your courage. And remember, the patient heart that learns to be brave. That's the heart that truly wins.